大家好，欢迎回到我的频道，我是艾琳。Guys, I am so excited to tell you about the main textbook that I have been using to learn Chinese with, where you can start with zero Chinese and you can work your way up. They have 4 different textbooks and you can work your way up through the intermediate high level of Chinese by the end. I'll do a walkthrough of the textbook, workbook, and character workbook, and then give my opinion and some extras at the end. If you're looking for a self-study textbook to learn Chinese with that is easy to start from day 1, will catch your attention and keep you motivated, you're in the right place. If you're new to my channel, welcome to the Multilingual Mind, where my goal is to give you guys tips and tricks to learning and maintaining languages. If you're new here, make sure you click the subscribe button to see more videos on how you can improve your language learning habits and reach your language learning goals. 开始吧! Alright guys, let's start off by talking about the levels that Integrated Chinese offers. So this series is going to bring you from the active level novice low to intermediate high, with more opportunities from the same publisher to level up your Chinese even further. The first textbook is going to bring you from novice low to novice high, the second textbook from novice high to intermediate low, third textbook from intermediate low to intermediate mid, and the fourth textbook from intermediate mid to intermediate high. Each level has its own workbook and character workbook, and there's also a web app available where you can have access to more features, and there are also more materials available for purchase, but I find these to be a little bit pricey. For example, they do have videos, but I think that the audio is enough for me. So what I love about this textbook, or one of the things that I love about this textbook, is that yes, the books are pretty expensive, guys, but they do capture your attention really well. They're beautifully done, and I think that the content in there is just fabulous, the way that they organize things. And also, much like my experience looking for textbooks in Germany, I figured out that they have most of their materials available online for free. I don't know, maybe this is just becoming a thing with language textbooks lately, but I think that's really cool that you have them online for free. You can just go ahead and download all of the textbook audio clips and for the workbook as well. I highly recommend checking out their website as well. It's like chung-sui.com, and I'm looking currently at, for my level, I would really like to, I think my next purchase will probably be Making Connections, I believe it's called, to practice, I think it's like reading and listening comprehension at the level that I'm currently at. But go ahead and peek around on there because there are some really cool books to supplement the textbooks Integrated Chinese, or to take it maybe even a step further, there are some more advanced level books in there that would be really great, I'm guessing for after you have finished with even the 4th book. Alright, let's go ahead and walk through this textbook. So the first thing that I noticed when I opened up the book is that it starts off with pinyin and radicals. The pinyin is really cool. Go ahead and listen to all of the audios on that, and I just repeated it back and forth. With the different sounds that you'll learn in the pinyin, so you become really familiar with those before you even start with the first lesson. Take your time, guys, and go through all of those the pinyin audio files, and do read through the full intro of that, and it'll give you a really great foundation to start with this textbook as a self-study option. Also, with the radicals, please don't skip past these, guys. This is a really great way to build your foundation at the beginning. I went ahead and made radical flashcards to memorize the meaning and the pinyin that goes along with them, and I put the character on one side so that you can start to recognize radicals. This will come into play later in the book, where they're going to have you doing exercises to recognize different radicals in different characters, which will help you decode the meaning of so many other characters, guys. So do not blow past the radicals. Make sure you go through and like learn those really well before you go on to the first lesson. So each lesson is going to have 2 dialogues on the same theme. The first one kind of introduces you to that theme, and then the second one will, I would say, bring the vocabulary a little bit further on the same topic. The dialogues, I think, are really well done in this book. Each one has really relevant vocabulary, and I like the fact that they don't, like, this is a huge point, guys, that I love about this book, because I have taught French and German before, and my kids can't ever really have conversations because they are just learning a giant list of like fruits and vegetables, for example, but then they don't really know much to say about the supermarket besides like how much does this cost or something. So a typical textbook would maybe just blast you with a list of all of the things in that theme, whereas this one I think has a really nice mix. Yeah, they might introduce you to a couple different country names, but for example, like in one of the chapters, I think it only introduces you to like the United States and China. Okay, so it's like that's enough for now, and like let's learn how to talk about these two countries, and let's pretend that these people are from these places and actually have a conversation instead of just listing a giant word list of all of the different countries, so you have to memorize all the different countries in that different language. It doesn't really provide that much for conversation. So I really appreciate that Integrated Chinese has stepped away from that a little bit, and they try to get an actual conversation going, and they know that you'll learn the other words later, so it's not a huge deal if you don't have all of the countries memorized right away. Alright, so in the dialogue you're going to see red highlights, those are for the language notes, and the blue highlights that are numbered are for the grammar points, which is really cool because when you go back to review a certain grammar point later, you can just see, is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, flip right to that section, and now you have a little grammar review for yourself. Or if you're not familiar with the term when you're first coming upon it, you can just go look it up right away and see what that's about. At the end of the dialogue, there's going to be a little paragraph of the pinyin altogether for that dialogue. And so it's kind of nice to be able to read through if you're like, I don't really remember the tone for that particular character. You can just look over to the side really quick on the pinyin and catch that. Do be aware that they don't change the tones. For example, if you have two third tones right next to each other, the first one is going to become a second tone, and then the third tone will stay for the second one. But they're just going to write it as two third tones. So you do have to know the rules of how to change the tones when they're next to each other. Alright, directly after the dialogue, you're going to see a vocabulary list, pretty typical. You've got the characters, you've got the pinyin, you've got the English definitions. And then you move on and you're going to get to the grammar points, just listed straight in a row and numbered like they were denoted in the dialogue. And then you're going to go on and you're going to have some language practice after that. Another cool thing about Integrated Chinese is that they have realia scattered throughout, and this is the section that you'll see called Get Real with Chinese, and they will have some sort of maybe a text message that you're reading, or a sign somewhere, or maybe a beverage bottle, and you're going to see if you can recognize some of the characters in there, which is more in a native context, right? So it's some sort of material that is made for native speakers, but they have picked out certain ones that you can understand little bits of. Another cool thing they have is called Chinese Chat, and it's where they're going to show you how Chinese is used in social media. So this will have maybe some slang or different terms that they will use when they're just chatting with each other and it's real informal, which is, I think it's really cool because this is the kind of thing that I only learned through chatting with people in French, for example. There's also a section called Characterize It, where they pick out a certain character that they want you to take a closer look at, and you'll analyze it based on the radicals or the general form of the character. For cultural references, I think Integrated Chinese does a cool job of this with their article that they place at the end of the second dialogue in each lesson. There's going to be a beautiful spread with photos and a little article, and they'll teach you a couple new vocabulary terms and something about the culture that relates to the general theme of the lesson. At the end of the lesson, there's going to be a lesson wrap-up as well as a can-do checklist, which is really nice for teachers or even for self-study, just to see how well you've learned the lesson targets. All right, we are ready to look through the workbook. So the workbook is going to start off with some learning targets at the beginning so you know what you're getting into. Next, there's going to be listening comprehension, pinyin and tone, speaking exercises, and then reading comprehension and writing and grammar at the end. All right, let's take a look through the character workbook now. It's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to have different characters here, and then you're going to have the pinyin and the English, and yeah. And then you'll also have the traditional characters if there are two. So this one, for example, here is just going to have one character, which is the traditional and has not been simplified. And then you have these here where it has the traditional and then the simplified right next to it. I personally like to make copies of these for myself to work from, because if I want to go back and review these, I really don't think there's enough spaces for that. Okay, back to the general structure of integrated Chinese. I just wanted to also point out that there is a small wrap-up after lesson 5, just to wrap up everything that you've learned and before you move on and check your knowledge. And then at the end, there will be also another wrap-up at the end of the book. There's also a vocabulary index at the end, and the Appendix 1 has the dialogues in traditional characters only. So if you want to review those traditional characters, you can go back to the end of the book, Appendix 1, and read through those. And then there's an Appendix 2, which has the dialogues in English, which, oh my goodness, guys, I just got to lesson 7 and I just figured this out. So, but honestly, I never really needed it. I think if you could just go through the vocabulary list, then you're going to be able to figure out what's being said between the vocabulary and the grammar help throughout the lesson. I just didn't really ever see a need to look at a transcription, so I'm not sure if I will use this or not, but it's kind of nice to have there just in case you're confused about a particular part and you don't have a teacher and you're doing self-study, then that would be really nice. Alright, so that about sums it up. The reason why I love this textbook is because it is just, I love the vocabulary selection that they have. I love the presentation. I love how beautiful the book is. I guess I'm just like really into aesthetics, but beyond the aesthetics, I think that I was just blown away at how much I was able to pick up so quickly. And maybe it's because of the differences between the European languages I've studied in the past and moving over to Chinese. But I do think that it's been super easy and quick to progress through these lessons, and as a teacher, I've just been honestly amazed, and I am so jealous that I haven't come across a textbook like this for my own students in French or German. So guys, I think it's worth the money. Go ahead and invest in this. I don't think that you're going to be upset. It's really well done, and stay tuned for other videos within my playlist, because part of the reason that I kept up my motivation for Chinese and that it's been so exciting to me, and I just feel like it's been a really enriching experience for me over the last several months, is because I've been using these multiple resources which continue to engage me. For example, the vocabulary that I'm learning in integrated Chinese, I am also reviewing with Duolingo. I've kind of been using both of them since the start, and the vocabulary has been really matching itself, or one will pre-teach me the vocabulary that like I'm about to see, and the other one I also use several other resources, so but I won't just list them all here. So stay tuned for other videos, and I will talk about all of the other resources that I'm using to learn Chinese. And I think when you use them in conjunction with each other, you really create a cool immersion experience for yourself, and you get to see the vocabulary in different contexts and in different styles and practice with them in different ways. And this is going to be what helps solidify the vocabulary. But as far as the textbook goes, I love to have a textbook to go from. It's just the way that I like to learn. I like to have a main textbook, and I'm so happy that I stumbled upon integrated Chinese, and I really recommend it. What resources are you guys using to learn Chinese? Have you tried integrated Chinese before? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to see more videos on the resources I'm using to learn Chinese. That's all I've got for today. 下次见. Bye bye.